Well, John Schneider is your average Canadian high school teacher, and like any upstanding Canadian citizen, he declares his income and files his taxes. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, the trouble is, John Schneider, who was born in the United States, is worried he could be caught up by something called the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. It's a new law being introduced by the United States government, which aims to crack down on offshore accounts held by Americans. The act would compel Canadian banks to share clients' banking information with the U.S. government, and it could lead to hefty fines and levies for people seen to be hiding money from the Americans. John Schneider joins me this morning. John, hello.
Good morning, Cleo.
So tell me, how American are you, first of all?
Well, I was born in Sharon, Connecticut, and I lived in the States till I was about 8 years old, after which we left.
And you've been a Canadian ever since. You've gone to school in Canada, you've worked in Canada, and so on.
That's right. Yeah.
Have you ever worked in the United States?
Never.
So you've never gotten a paycheck from an American employer?
I've never earned any American dollars. I've never voted. I've never used the social system there in any way. So anything that I might have paid taxes for in the States, to cover the cost of, I've never used, essentially.
So tell me what you thought when you first learned of the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, as it's called.
I think initially I thought there's nothing to worry about. It wouldn't apply to me. I haven't earned any money there, so of course I haven't paid any taxes there. And it sounds like they're after people who are trying to hide U.S. assets elsewhere. Sort of big criminal types with accounts in the Cayman Islands kind of thing. But then as time went on, it sort of seemed more like they were encouraging everyone who hadn't ever filed taxes to file taxes. And then even worse than that, their definition of who is an American citizen kind of became more and more surprising, I guess would be the word. It didn't surprise me so much that I was considered American citizen, because it still says in my Canadian passport what my birthplace is. But the fact that my kids are considered American citizens seems strange. And that they might be subject to these same, requirements seems strange too. It just seems inconceivable, really, right? I mean, I don't understand how that can be, and it sort of surprises me that a foreign country can make decisions about Canadian citizens and their offspring, right? Make a decision that legally they're still American citizens. It's very strange.
So far in this process, how much have you learned about what you need to do, what you're responsible for now? In the lead up to the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, when it comes into effect in July, what do you need to do when that happens?
I'm not entirely sure. What it sounds like is that at some point I can expect my bank to ask me if I'm an American person, and which I guess it sounds like they will be required to do if nothing changes. And then everything that's going on in terms of my banking and accounting with them will be open to perusal by the IRS. And it sounds like I'm supposed to file taxes all the way back to I don't know when. And once I do that, presumably I could be subject to penalties for not having filed. And certainly the carrot back 2 years ago was that if you'd self-disclosed, presumably there might be no penalty, or at least they would be lenient. But now whoever didn't do it then can get the hammer, which is these frightening fines, massive percentages of your bank account, anything over $50,000. It sounds kind of horrifying, and it sounds unbelievable, really, because I do pay taxes here, and I have always lived and worked and voted here, and you're just kind of left wondering, well, aren't I protected by my own country, right? I'm a citizen here, right? Because
have you considered hiring a tax lawyer through all this?
Well, I'm a pretty ordinary person. I'm a high school teacher. A tax lawyer to the tune of $5,000 up to who knows what is not really it's not something I want to invest in particularly. I'm still sort of waiting to hear something sensible happen. I guess if that's the only option, then I guess I'll take that option. But so far, I really haven't seen. I don't know. I haven't seen anything sort of that I can believe come out of the process yet. Like, it just sounds ridiculous. I mean, every article that I do see starts with the fact that the goal is to snare these folks who are U.S. taxpayers who are dodging U.S. taxes because they're hiding U.S. funds elsewhere. Well, that doesn't describe me, So I just kind of keep thinking this can't really be me or my kids, right? And also, it sort of feels a bit like there's too many of us in Canada who are in my exact situation. And really, if we all just say no, the process of the return on dragging us all down would be so expensive, right? I just don't think there's any return in it for them.
So, Jonathan, have you considered simply rescinding your American citizenship? Can you do that?
There's also something funny about the citizenship aspect of it, to me at least. When we emigrated, it was like 78 or 79. I was 10 or 11. At that time, you could sort of carry on with your dual citizenship. There was no issue on either side of the border, as far as I recall. Again, I was pretty young. But we used to enter the States with an American passport and exit the States with a Canadian passport. And that was kind of fine on both sides. Then there came a time when the U.S. made a statement that, unless you rescinded your other citizenship, that you would not be allowed to maintain your American citizenship. They wanted people to choose.
Oh, I see. So you couldn't be a dual citizen.
That's right. But Canada had no such problem. And so we just didn't renew our passports. We just didn't renew our American passports. We kept our Canadian passports, obviously. I mean, we were living in Canada. And so that was fine. We just did that, and we sort of crossed the border as Canadians from then on. But the latest version of that, for the purposes of FATCA, is that you can't give up your American citizenship simply by not getting a passport or not doing anything. You have to take an action. You have to go in specifically and request to no longer be an American citizen, which costs you some money, but also requires that you settle your deal with IRS. And so now, and again, like to me, they've changed this several times over the years, right? And it just seems like this sort of at arm's length distant decision about people that are not your citizens, that's convenient for them in their attempt to kind of go ahead with these new laws, these new tax laws, right? I mean, this business of my kids being American citizens because I was an American, that never used to be the case. I mean, in order to be an American citizen, you had to be born in the States, which is why I'm an American citizen. But my kids were born here. It doesn't make any sense at all unless you're trying to do what they're trying to do, right?
Well, Jonathan Schneider, thanks very much for taking some time to share your thoughts on this. Well, it's an interesting conundrum, and we'll be following it for the next few months.
Thanks very much.
John Schneider is a school teacher in Victoria. He was born in the United States but hasn't lived there since he was 8 years old.